What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about 6 things you should know about Alan Wake 2. These are going to cover quite a few different categories. One thing we're going to try to stay away from, at least in this video, and I could do another video on it, is more of the deep dive of the story and the theories and returning places and new places. I think that gets a little too complex for a video like this, but again, I can do a separate video if you guys want to. So let's start with maybe the most exciting thing is the release date. So the release of Alan Wake 2 is October 17th, 2023. Very quick turnaround. We had heard from the voice actor of Alan Wake himself about a week ago that this game was supposed to come out in October, and it seems like they nailed it. The second thing I want to talk about is the whole made for everyone idea. Now, this was mentioned in the blog post. This was mentioned in specifically the FAQs on the website of Alan Wake, and basically what it means is if you've played, Control, if you've played Alan Wake before, obviously that is probably preferred, and that's what, I would recommend people do that. They would kind of recommend people do it. They basically say it wouldn't hurt, right? If you want to know some of the lore, you want to know some of what happened before, play Control, play Alan Wake. There's even, and we'll talk about this in a second, an Easter egg in Quantum Break, so maybe you play that one as well, but just kind of brush up on it if you want to. If you don't want to, considering this game is years and years later in the game, in their time, and also in our time. And Alan Wake being, it's a game I absolutely love, but it wasn't the biggest game of all time. This is not a game that went on to sell, 10, 15 million units in the first year. It's not that huge of a game. So this is a good jumping on point, and I think they realize that. I think it's pretty obvious to kind of realize that in general. And you have to remember, considering the first game broken up into chapters, a lot of narration, literally writing a book, that was like the whole point, but it sets the stage. And I think you can do that in here's what you need to know, like a video in the game. You can embed it into the game, or even just the very opening of the game. You have Alan kind of going over the events of the first game. In fact, we get a little bit of that even in the trailers. So the game lends itself perfectly for a recap kind of thing. It works absolutely amazing, and I don't think they planned it that way, but it is what it is. Third thing I want to talk about is the price and the no physical disc. So let's get a little controversial, even though I don't actually think it's controversial. I think most people would maybe agree with me. We'll see. So the price is $50 on PC, $60 on consoles. Now, for a game that's next gen only, that's good, considering you have, a lot of games going for the $70 mark, right? Game prices are increasing, and you can have whatever you want to say about that. You can say it. However, they're doing no physical version, no disc for this game, and their excuses to me are not great. Now, I get it to an extent. One of the excuses is we don't want to raise prices, so we don't want PC, I guess, to be 60. We don't want console to be 70. So instead, we're going to slice those. Well, even though PC, I don't even know why that works the way it works, but we're going to slice $10, and we're not going to release a physical. To me, with internet just around the world, you never truly know. With collectors, like people that go for games 20 years down the line, right? They'll have the Sly Cooper collection from PS3 that'll just never release ever again. It's not a good look, I think. And also, their excuse that, well, other games do it too. They said that. They said, well, other games have done this where they do it digitally. Normally, it's not big games. Most times this happens, and that's what's scary to me about Alan Wake 2. Not the fact it's a horror game, so no pun intended there, but this is a big game from a big publisher, a big developer. This can be a trendsetter. So other companies may look at this and say, hey, you guys are complaining about $70, and they're right. People have complained about the price increase. Well, we'll bring it down for you, but no physical anymore. We're done with that. And this could be a game that really sets it off. It's not the first game to do it, but in terms of a game of its size, it's pretty big. It's pretty big to do something like that. So hopefully they do some sort of limited run physical version. I know publishers have actually come up to them and offered it to them, or at least on Twitter, so hopefully that ends up happening. Number 4 is the 2 protagonist setup of the entire game. So you got Alan Wake, but then you also have an FBI agent, Saga Anderson. I hope that's how you say her first name. And what I found when looking this stuff up online, because I didn't catch this the first time, in Quantum Break, as I mentioned earlier, these FBI investigators, they're actually in Quantum Break. It's just a quick little Easter egg. She's been reimagined, but they are the same characters, so That's cool. The idea of, I mean, the duality, they're mentioning that quite often, whether it's the blog or, again, the FAQs or just the trailer. But the fact that one of it takes place in the dark place with Alan, and then one just takes place, on planet Earth, or, in the normal sphere of things, I think is really cool. I think that'll lend itself to different enemies that we already can see in the trailer. Alan doesn't seem to have light versus she does. And again, different enemy types that they're both facing. It seems pretty cool. And I think it's a good idea to do something like this. Number 5 is DLC. So this is something that I caught. I didn't see anybody else talk about this. I'm sure some people saw this. But in the FAQs, they mentioned DLC. So there's going to be free ones. And maybe those are cosmetics. Maybe those are, whatever they are. But then there's going to be 2 paid DLC expansions that they gave the names of, but they're not going to talk anymore about it until maybe it gets closer. So that's not completely shocking. They did have an expansion for the original Alan Wake. Good to see it, I guess, announced or just like out there where people can kind of prepare themselves for it so early before the game comes out. So that is exciting that even when the game ends, as long as the game should end, right? And then the DLCs can be extra. I don't want the game ending on some massive cliffhanger that you then need the paid expansions to finish. I've never liked that about games, and hopefully that's not the case here. And the number 6 is really the next time we see it, and we don't have to wait long at all, Summer Games Fest. So Jeff Keighley answered our prayers, as he always does, and he posted on Twitter that we're going to see raw gameplay of Alan Wake 2 at Summer Games Fest. So again, you see a little bit of it in the trailer, but not too much. Obviously, at Summer Games Fest, maybe 2, 3, 4 minutes of maybe you swap, maybe you show a little bit of one, a little bit of the other, walking through some environments, seeing some enemies. That'll probably be a little less story heavy versus what the trailer gave us, but then we'll start to see mechanics, different enemy types, things like that. So 2 weeks away, and then we get to see gameplay for this thing kind of just raw. And then again, October 17th, very quick turnaround. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.